Hey guys, and welcome to my final video on the Powerpuff Girls 2016 reboot. We made it, and on my channel's 5-year anniversary no less. 5 years ago today, I began my journey here on YouTube by making an admittedly terrible review on the Powerpuff Girls 2016 reboot. Shortly thereafter, I began making my first couple of episode reviews that were more or less just summaries, and now here we are 5 years later at the tail end of that journey. In these 5 years, we've experienced highs and we've experienced lows. We made it through several controversies, a fourth Powerpuff Girl, miscellaneous media, and 120 11-minute episodes of inferior, watered-down content based on one of the greatest animated series ever created. And what a wild ride it's been! 5 years of producing content on this one series, it's honestly astonishing to me that I'm here right now. My goal was to review every single episode of the 2016 reboot, and now I can say, I've done it. My channel exists as the most comprehensive collection of videos detailing almost everything about the Powerpuff Girls reboot, consisting of not only episodic reviews, but also top 5s for each season, random news updates as they had happened in real time, and other media such as the mobile apps, comics, and even their appearance in LEGO Dimensions. I, of course, haven't quite covered everything, however, seeing as toys, merchandise, and public events have sort of proved difficult for me to discuss at length in a video format. I do intend to acknowledge those things in this video, however, there won't be any in-depth reviews or unboxings of specific products or anything like that. Speaking of which, what all am I going to be doing in this finale video other than rambling on about whatever I feel like? Well, actually, this is going to be pretty structured, and I've got a few things in store for you. Some reflections, some thank yous, my overall thoughts, some special lists. One question I've been asking myself lately, now that the end is near, is a very simple one, but one I've fixated on nevertheless. Do I have any regrets? And at first, I wasn't so sure. There have definitely been moments in my life during this whole experiment that have been tough on me, and I was even close to quitting altogether once in 2018, but now that all is said and done, I can safely say that no, I don't have any regrets. None at all. I am fully satisfied with what I managed to achieve in these last 5 years reviewing a show about superpowered children not being superheroes, as silly as that is to say. Now, would I do it all again? Honestly, probably not, because reviewing this show has been a lot for me to handle. But at least I can rest peacefully knowing that I was insane enough to be the only person on this entire planet to create a video review of every single episode of the series and give some of the most comprehensive coverage of the reboot both during and after its run. I dedicated 5 years of my life to doing this, and admittedly, it probably would have only taken me 3 had I operated at the same efficiency that I did in 2019 and 2020 especially. The ultimate feeling that I have right now is one that I hope many of you share. Bittersweet. It's sad, sure, that it's over, but at the same time, I can finally relax, stretch out my arms and legs, and rest easy knowing that I gave it my all to cover this series in as much depth and detail as I possibly could. While admittedly my Season 1 videos have not aged particularly well in comparison to the Season 2 and 3 ones, I do not want to go back and remake them again, and I know this is something that I've been asked before. They are a representation of who I was in 2016 and 2017, and no matter how hard I could try to go back and make the best reviews possible of those episodes now, I cannot physically recapture the same sensation that was felt at the time those videos were made. They are definitely a product of their time, and I don't really want to tamper with that. We are now beyond the reboot's era on Cartoon Network's airwaves. The popularity of its hate has died out, and to me personally, remaking those videos just doesn't sound appealing as a creator for those very reasons. Another reason I don't feel the need to remake those videos is because my opinions of those episodes have largely remained the same, and if I felt the need to acknowledge a change in how I felt towards one of them, I made sure to acknowledge it in a Season 2 or 3 video. As it stands, every video that I have made represents how I feel towards the subject matter I'm reviewing. for the most part. Hopefully those of you that have asked me to re-review those episodes can understand my reasoning in not wanting to do this. That said, however, I think I want to start things off by simply going into my overall thoughts on the Powerpuff Girls 2016 reboot as a series, and how reviewing it for the past 5 years has both enhanced and hindered my perspective of it. Several people have gone out and asked me to provide my overall stance on the series now that it's been completed, and while I certainly understand the concept of comparing my thoughts in the beginning to where I am now, I honestly feel that a lot of my reviews still speak for themselves. It's apparently obvious that I think the Powerpuff Girls 2016 reboot is a heavily flawed mess that most people will find difficult to get any enjoyment out of due to the lack of chemistry that made the original series so great. Season 1 was an absolute dumpster fire between the heavy reliance on outdated meme culture, a terrible abundance of impossible to miss animation errors, a distinct lack of action, and pitiful attempts at preaching a progressive message that clearly indicate the show didn't actually understand what it was trying to say. Lots of oversights and apathy towards the minuscule details that tie events together. Very often there are decisions made that go against the very idea the episode is trying to portray that can be downright baffling. It is next to impossible to immerse oneself within this world because the rules are constantly changing and contradicting one another. Continuity is an afterthought, and that is to this series' detriment. None of the characters are particularly easy to attach to because all three of the girls have this incessant desire to whine, complain, scream, and argue in practically 95% of the episodes in the entire series. For a show about sisterhood, these girls certainly get into fights a lot. And obviously, siblings fight, I'm well aware of this, but this is to such an excessive degree that it is distracting. It doesn't need to be this frequent. All of the reboot's incarnations of the characters are particularly unappealing and far less glamorous than the original characters that they were based upon. Reboot Professor Utonium is my least favorite character in anything ever. Animation, film, games, literature, literally anything. Miss Bellum's removal was a tragedy, and I'll get into that in a minute, and the mayor is boiled down to nothing but his stupidity, whereas in the original, his stupidity was only one small aspect of his character. Miss Keene barely gets any screen time at all, and at most all she does is have 2 or 3 lines where she's just a generic teacher. None of her role model-like attributes that were present in her original incarnation are here, and that is a huge misfire on the reboot's part. The animation is nothing impressive, and there's no excuse for the blatant laziness that existed in Season 1. Thankfully, Seasons 2 and 3 improved quite substantially, relatively speaking, but it was still nothing mind-blowing after that change. I really do not care for the reboot's art style because it's the most basic bitch-looking cartoon I think I've ever seen. The lack of action speaks for itself, the plots are super boring and uninteresting, and it astounds me that there wasn't anything more creative implemented into a show about superheroes, especially in the 2010s, when superheroes exploded in popularity. And worst of all, this show failed to promote positive ideas more times than I can count. I'm well aware that a lot of people out there like to complain that there are too many contemporary cartoons that value an agenda over the actual quality and content of the show. But the only series that I can actually agree with those people on is the Powerpuff reboot. Not to say there aren't any others, but of the shows I've seen, yeah, this is the only example where I feel that's true. Between Donnie, who was claimed to be a trans representation by the higher-ups on the show, only to later be retracted, which may or may not have just been an attempt to save face given all of the other attempts at pushing agendas on the show. Bluebell, who was supposed to represent something related to female positivity. I don't know what that something is, given how abhorrently that episode is written, because there are so many possible messages, yet it couldn't settle on one and just ends up contradicting all of those possibilities. Bliss, who was created as a Powerpuff Girl with a darker skin color, only to be portrayed as emotionally unstable and quick to abandon her family, amongst other problems. Manboy, who I think speaks for himself as a literal stereotype rather than a clever parody or commentary on masculinity.
You and what army?
I'm glad you asked. This army!
A steak army? Ew.
Way to show that it's okay to criticize somebody specifically for their sex. Seriously, this comment was completely unnecessary, and for a show that wants to spread a message about positivity, especially to children of all sexes, it shouldn't be showing that it's okay to criticize a person because of their sex. What it should be doing is criticizing Manboy for being evil, for destroying property, for committing crimes, not vilifying him simply because he is a man who likes steak. Feeble attempts at including positive female role models without actually portraying them as positive characters also gets under my skin because of its lack of sincerity. Take the marine biologist in Largo, for example, where Bubbles just says she's her favorite marine biologist with absolutely zero context as to who this woman is, why she's here, or what makes her great.
Mrs. Rhonda, my favorite marine biologist. I need some advice.
Why, Bubbles, of course. Not.
I mean, you can just hear how insincere this is based on the delivery of the line alone. I get that the show wanted to spread good messages, but it almost always bit off more than it could chew. I'd say I admired the attempts at least if the show wasn't so transparent in how profit-driven it was. The Powerpuff Girls reboot did not exist because Cartoon Network wanted to inspire children and promote positivity. They wanted to milk a property for all it was worth and make a shit ton of money first. The positivity just happened to be a side attribute that they could use to make more money. It is clear to me that this show didn't actually know how to create a proper feminist cartoon, because it seems that most of the male characters are portrayed as dumb fucking idiots, while all the females are portrayed as emotionally unstable. The professor, Mojo, Donnie, the mayor, even Jared, all idiots. Blossom, Bubbles, Buttercup, Princess, all super emotional and quick to overreact. Anyone else noticing some parallels here? Or is it just me? Cartoon Network doesn't earn progressive points just because they say a character is something. They need to actually put in an effort to represent that particular group within that character in a way that isn't derogatory, detrimental, or meaningless. Just saying a character is a marine biologist doesn't automatically make it good, because for all we know, that character is actually a complete asshole. You can't just assume that all people of a certain profession are great or terrible. Not only does the removal of Miss Bellum indicate how the people that made that decision completely misunderstood the joke, but it also shows that they only viewed her as an object rather than a character, and it also sends a message that women aren't allowed to be in power or beautiful. Miss Bellum was both of those things. The removal of her character inherently says that only the man may be in charge of government. Only the man may hold a position of power, not the woman that actually ran the city. Oh, and then of course the show went and made curvier women than Bellum anyways, so talk about hypocrisy much. Yeah, sure, Bellum didn't fit the message because of her appearance, but Bianca Bikini is allowed to have thicker thighs and a thinner waist? The show mocks how skimpy Wonder Woman's outfit is, but did it even look at its design for young Greenwing? Fuck off! And then of course there was the whole Jared situation, which was the first time my channel actually blew up for something. I have since clarified everything regarding what happened in my A Star is Blossom review, so again, if you wish to know my thoughts, refer to that video because they still haven't changed since I made that review. No apology to this day, by the way. Everyone was saying this back in 2016, and I'm still saying it to this day. It is clear that the Powerpuff Reboot's #1 priority was to milk the franchise dry, and every single aspect of this show is clearly indicative of that. No matter what aspect you look at, you will find problems. The writing, the character designs, the animation, the plots, the jokes, you name it. None of it feels like it's coming from a place of sincerity. The rules of this show are so inconsistent that you never actually obtain a full understanding of the characters. In one episode, Buttercup can't lead the team, yet in other episodes she's fully capable. In one episode, Bubbles loves brushing her teeth, yet in another she absolutely refuses to do it. There is zero consistency here, and that on top of all of the other problems I've gone over just makes this an absolute disaster on every single front. I still to this day consider this the worst thing that Cartoon Network Studios has ever produced. Yes, There are good episodes here and there, but they are few and far between. And looking back, yeah, there were a few times I placed blame towards the wrong aspect of the series. This is why ever since my season 2 videos, I have chosen to refer to almost every mistake being the fault of the show as a collective. I know a lot more about the production of animation today than compared to when I started making these videos. Back then, I would blame almost everything on the writing without ever considering the fact that a lot of the choices made for the show were due to an executive rather than the writers themselves. And I've since learned from those mistakes. That's why I don't address anybody by name, why I prefer to refer to the show as one entity, because some of the time I don't outright know who's to blame. There are certainly instances where it's easier to tell one way or another, but I ultimately consider this show's failings to be the fault of everybody involved. Take Bliss, for example. The idea to include her was probably an executive decision. Her backstory, probably due to the writing. Her design, obviously, a result of character designers, and awkwardly delivered dialogue could be voice acting or voice direction. The occasionally wonky animation is also, of course, due to the animators. It's not like one individual person is at fault for Bliss turning out the way she did. It was a collective problem because she didn't originate out of passion. She was included to gain publicity for the show and was most likely mandated by the company's executives in order to make more money. This is easily proven by the merchandise that was made available for purchase immediately after Power of 4 finished airing that day. Not even a day later, no, the literal minute that the special finished airing, there was merchandise for sale. So yes, there have been times in the past where I said the wrong thing, and I fully own up to that. I was still learning as a critic, and I'm still learning to this day. I still make the occasional stupid mistake, such as my whole Chosen One debacle that, looking back, didn't really need to be in my review of The Spoon. I also incorrectly interpreted the vocal imitation of President Dinosaur in Toy Ploy. These are things that I'm not afraid to accept. I admit I'm not a perfect critic, and I never will be. I will definitely make mistakes in the future, and not every argument I try to construct will end up being strong. And even though I've already done this before in the past, I'd like to formally apologize once again to anybody that I may have offended in the past due to my younger self not necessarily conveying his emotions and thoughts in the correct manner. Let it be known that I don't hate anybody who worked on the show as a person, and I never have. I just don't agree with most of the decisions that were made. I've never sent anybody threats or encouraged others to do so, nor would I ever do such a thing. And I hope nobody has ever attempted to do so on my behalf, because I would not be pleased to hear that. I get that some people online overreacted to this whole thing. I completely get that. But it's important to remember that an audience of that magnitude would not have been upset with the show if there wasn't anything wrong with it. Rather than deflecting criticism or shrugging it off because adults just don't get it, maybe listening to them would have been the better thing to do. Most of the people upset with the reboot had a legitimate reason to be upset. That being that, face the facts, the show wasn't very good. I think accepting the fact that this show is a disaster and learning from the experience is the best thing to do in this situation, rather than living in denial and shrugging off everybody who has criticisms of it as not getting it. But hey, that's just me. Also, measuring the success of a show by its merchandise sales rather than its quality is indicative to me of where the priorities were. Just saying. I ultimately believe that this show did not understand what made the original Powerpuff Girls so successful and ultimately failed to live up to that precedent that was set before it. I never wanted the reboot to exist, and I'd much rather be living in a timeline where it never did come to fruition. You know, aside from the fact that I probably wouldn't have a YouTube channel, but that's besides the point. Now that I've experienced it all, I can solemnly say that I never want to spend another second of my life on this show for as long as I live. I'm done. I did it. I covered every episode, made top 5s on the seasons, and produced several other bonus videos along the way. And unless I decide to stay at the Cartoon Network hotel sometime before they get rid of the Powerpuff representation that is there, I don't see myself ever returning back to this series. I've had my fill. Probably a much greater fill than any other sane person on the planet. But now, I'm full. There were some fun moments to be found here and there, but as a whole, I don't have any desire to return to the reboot anymore. I've been covering this series through it all. From the very beginning, right after it started and took the internet by storm, all the way to its conclusion and the aftermath that followed. Now, I can confidently say that Shadowstreak is the only person out of literal billions to have the most in-depth coverage of the Powerpuff Girls 2016 reboot on the planet. I can rest knowing that this project truly is one of a kind and is easily one of my proudest accomplishments that took me 5 years to the day to complete. That is truly magical to me. Now, something that I don't expect anyone to know about me is that Shadowstreak isn't the first YouTube channel I've ever operated. It's been the most consistent and successful, sure, but it's nowhere near the first. It's actually the 5th channel I believe I've maintained during my lifetime. I've owned a variety of channels before this one. My first, which wasn't anything special, a Let's Play channel, which never got off the ground, a Top 10s channel, which managed to get some decent attention, I suppose. I made countdowns of things like best Smash 4 remixes, top 10 Sonic songs, best Mario Kart 8 tracks, etc, etc. And then of course, I also ran a music archive channel for about 2 years or so, from 2015 to 2017. A little known fact about me is that I originally had the idea to make a channel about cartoons in 2013, when I rediscovered my interest in classic Cartoon Network shows since I had sort of forgot about them as a teen for a few years. I had come up with plans to do things like top 10s, reviews of every PPG episode, the works. In fact, I still have some of those documents saved to this very day, for sentimental reasons. I never went through with creating the channel though, thankfully, considering I was like 16 or 17 at the time. Luckily, when 2016 came around and the reboot came out, I started reviewing it and the rest is history. Although, I should preface that becoming Shadowstreak was not as easy as it may seem. Remember in 2015 when it was revealed the original voice actors for Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup would not be reprising their roles? Yeah, that announcement was originally going to be the first topic I ever made a video on as a cartoon reviewer. Unfortunately, because I knew I would be heading off to college at the end of the summer and wouldn't be able to maintain a channel very well, I never went through with it, and instead I held off until we got our first taste of the PPG reboot in action. So in March of that year, I began writing my script. This was before I even knew it would piss off the entire internet, by the way. I was going to review the show regardless of how popular it was to hate. Things just so happened to work out for me at the time that I managed to tag along for the ride. I wrote my script for the remaining duration of my second college semester and anticipated recording the voiceover for it as soon as I got home. I had my dad order me a Blue Yeti microphone so that it would be waiting at my house when I got there, and the day after, I attempted to record my video. But as it turned out, the mic was defective. So I had my dad send it back, and I was forced to wait a few days to receive another one, which also didn't work. Regardless, I decided to say screw Blue Yeti and ordered an Audio-Technica instead, which is the very same mic I am still using to this very day. The microphone I used to record that very first video is the same that you've heard my voice coming through in every single video review I've ever posted on the PPG reboot, and is the same one you're hearing my voice through now. With the audio done, next I used the Powerpuff Yourself creator to come up with my first set of avatars, which I really lucked out on, by the way, because I have like zero drawing talent and would not have been able to acquire a set of them otherwise at the time. I don't know if it was fate that I reviewed the reboot or what, but considering all of the convenient coincidences that allowed me to get a quick start on my channel, I wouldn't be surprised. On May 6th, 2016, I released my first video, and after just 1 week, it had about 100 views, which in my eyes was absolutely incredible. In 3 weeks, it had several thousand. Once June rolled around, it absolutely took off, and I went from having 0 people watching me to over 1,000 in the span of 6 weeks. 6 weeks! It took me 6 weeks to achieve a goal that I expected to take me well over a year. Now bear in mind, I was new to the whole YouTube thing at the time, so I didn't have very much scope at all in terms of what was reasonable to achieve. I had no idea how the algorithm worked. I had no idea that talking about trending topics made it more likely for your video to get picked up in the wave and for more people to watch it. I literally had zero idea about how the system worked. I've never expected to have 1 million subscribers, and I still don't, but even 10,000 back then seemed absolutely out of reach for me. At that point, I was already content where I was. 1,000 was the realistic goal I set for myself, and I achieved that. So from there, I just rolled with it. I've still been rolling with it to this very day. It's funny, I originally never intended to make individual reviews of every single Reboot episode. I actually planned to go the whole top 10 route that I had tried in 2013, but after making the initial review, I had wanted to experiment and try a review of Escape from Monster Island. I had seen other people do videos reviewing episodes of a series, and I figured, why not? I enjoyed making it, and I figured I'd give it a shot. I enjoyed making it, so I did another, then another, then another, then pretty soon I just found myself reviewing every episode of the series. Except I wasn't really reviewing them at first, I was just giving 4-minute summaries instead. Yeah, needless to say, my audio wasn't the only thing to improve since the early days. Practically everything did. As the summer went on, I released my episode reviews at a rapid pace to the point where I actually caught up with the show for a brief point in time, believe it or not. But then, of course, college came along to ruin that momentum, and pretty soon I found my production output grinding to a screeching halt. Uploads became sparse and it was difficult for me to record due to my new roommates who I also did not have a very healthy relationship with. It was actually extremely toxic and sent me into a several month-long depression that I didn't let on about very much, especially online, but basically I felt trapped in my room all the time to where I couldn't leave unless I had to go to class, and thankfully we had separate rooms because it was apartment style, but yeah, that really sucked. In fact, that entire first year was pretty difficult. I did get to start streaming though, something I had always wanted to try out, and besides that, I also joined Discord and made a bunch of friends, some of whom I still talk with to this very day. 2017 on the whole, however, was easily one of the worst years of my life. Between dealing with a nearly year-long stomach illness to the loss of one of my biggest role models and my dog of nearly 15 years, as well as college pressure sending me into a spiraling depression and hating my college degree at the time, making videos was one of the few things that made me happy, and I spent a lot of time honing my craft and getting better at editing, projecting my voice, piecing together my arguments, and putting out better videos than ever before. I even got more comfortable behind the microphone. I honestly don't know what I would have done if I didn't have YouTube to fall back on, and I'm eternally grateful that things worked out the way they did. 2017 was also the year my channel kind of took off for a second time when the Jared and Bliss videos were put out. Next came 2018, which was a solid first half of the year. I mean, I had a blast putting out those different videos and started up the season 2 reviews. It was also my first real attempt to branch out into different shows, which had mixed results admittedly, but it was a huge step up for me in terms of my editing game. New avatars, new thumbnails, and a slew of new assets. Seriously, I think my Season 2 reviews were such a massive improvement over Season 1, probably the biggest improvement you're ever gonna see me make. The second half of 2018 got a little rough, however, when I experienced a very severe case of creative block to where I just had no desire to work on anything. Video output slowed to a crawl and I was generally unsatisfied with what I was making at the time. Even if I did manage to create what I still consider to be my best video I've ever made, the 20th anniversary video of the Powerpuff Girls. I don't really have much to add following 2018 because I managed to bounce back from that slump I was in. I got my groove and I've just been coasting ever since. I graduated college, moved into my first apartment with my girlfriend, got a full-time job, attended my first convention which was a dream come true, tried a few other experimental channels here and there, got a cat, made some more new friends, and finally completed my coverage of the Powerpuff Reboot. Other than that, I've just been living my life and enjoying what I do. I'm proud to see how far I've come since May 6, 2016, and I have no regrets. It's kind of helped me grow as a person in a lot of ways. I'm a lot more analytical and critical when it comes to devising my arguments, and I feel like I'm just an overall better writer too. I always hated writing papers in school, but now that I'm actually writing about subjects I genuinely care about, I'm having a blast with it. Being on the internet has also kind of numbed me to drama and controversies after experiencing so much of it, and it honestly has done wonders for me. Not the experience of drama, but rather becoming numb to it. I don't have any desire to get caught up in all that noise that's made on social media, so much so to the point that I barely even use it anymore. YouTube has ultimately just become my sole platform, and even though I have plenty of problems with it, it's where I feel I can genuinely communicate with the most people. Instead of getting caught up in social media, I enjoy my life by playing games, watching movies, going out and doing something productive. Too much of the internet really isn't healthy, and I'm glad that I've managed to kind of pull myself back from it a bit. I can also thank this hobby of mine for introducing me to some great people that have helped me along the way, and I appreciate all of the things that they have done to help me get to where I am. The artists, the other YouTubers, members of the Discord crew, you name it. And of course, a very special thank you to you guys who continue to support this hobby of mine. I always enjoy reading your comments, and I realize I don't respond to every single one, because if I did, it would just take so long to do. But getting to discuss the various aspects and topics that I cover in my videos is a dream come true. So, and I cannot say this enough, thank you to everyone for supporting me in one way or another. Seriously, I greatly appreciate all of your help over the years. But now, with that out of the way, let's shift gears here to another aspect of this 5-year journey that I kind of want to talk about. My favorite and least favorite videos I've made. Well, right off the bat, my least favorite video I've ever made is my old review of Once Upon a Townsville, which is no longer up for various reasons. I honestly just feel like I was way too mean in that video, and that's not how I ever really want to come across, and even when I released it, I wasn't very proud of it. That's why I took it down and re-reviewed it almost a year later, which I actually still believe to be one of my best episode reviews I've made. I don't know, everything I said in that re-review, I still stand by to this day. It is the absolute worst animated trash of an episode I've ever seen in any show. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. Even stuff like Problem Solvers bothers me less than the absolutely insulting morality of this episode. I mean no offense when I say this, but I honestly don't see how anybody could watch that and call it good, but hey, to each their own, I guess. Somehow that shit got nominated for an Emmy, so somebody out there must have thought it was good. Even if the intent of the episode was to preach a progressive message, the execution did the exact opposite, and the execution of something is way more important than the intent. The ends don't justify the means. And again, that ties into the whole prioritizing a message over quality issue that I've already delved into. Some of my other least favorites include the Painbow review or any of the early reviews for that matter. Honestly, as much as I refer back to them to showcase how much I've grown, that doesn't mean I like them. I genuinely hate a lot of them. Most of the videos I made in 2016, and some even in 2017, are terrible in my eyes, but I still keep them up for posterity's sake. I don't really have a favorite episode review though, seeing as I made like 120 of the things, but I guess of all of them, The Last Donnycorn really sticks out to me the most. I really think that's a solid video, even if it is nearly 50 minutes long. It probably didn't need to go on for that long, but I don't know, I had a blast making it from start to finish. A Star is Blossom also sticks out to me because it's where I gave my final thoughts on the whole Jared controversy that had happened, and I feel that that concisely elaborated on everything that bothered me about the scenario without coming across the wrong way. I'm definitely satisfied, and I stand by what I said in that review. My 5 reviews of the Power of 4 special are also pretty solid in my eyes because, again, I specifically go into every flaw with that special and Bliss's character. Season 2 as a whole is probably my favorite era of my channel in terms of the videos I made. Not to say Season 3 was bad or anything, but it was definitely less enjoyable because I felt like I was just gunning for the end to get it done and over with. Season 2 wasn't an absolute shit show like Season 1 and seemed to have the peak moments in it. Kinda sucks that after Bliss there wasn't anything worthwhile to really delve deep into aside from a few one-off episodes. Not saying I want controversy or anything, but Season 3 didn't take very many risks. In fact, it pretty much died not with a bang, but with a whimper. The top 5s were always fun to make too, and those bonus videos at the end of the series were enjoyable experiences overall. It was nice to see some other content that was created for the reboot outside of the show itself. But of course, my absolute favorite video I've made is the 20th anniversary video. for obvious reasons. Speaking of other content, I'm fully aware that there were things like toys, Lego sets, DVDs, books, so on and so forth, but the fact of the matter is that I don't have the time or desire to go track down and purchase all of that excess material. I just don't see it as being worth it in my eyes, even if I were to do it for a video. I apologize to anybody that wanted to hear my thoughts on insert toy here, but alas, I'm not going to be able to deliver much on that front other than simply acknowledging that they exist. I will say I was originally planning to take a trip to the Cartoon Network Hotel and see what I could cover in regards to the reboot there, but unfortunately, due to real-world circumstances, I was unable to make that a reality. I don't believe I've ever acknowledged the existence of the Powerpuff Yourself creator in a video before, so here I'm doing it in the final video ever, I guess. Better late than never, right? Yep, my first set of avatars was initially created using the Powerpuff Yourself app that CN had released when the reboot was first coming out. It was actually a really awesome program that allowed people to create themselves as a Powerpuff character, and admittedly, it was a brilliant marketing technique because it generated a lot of buzz. I recall seeing tons of people making their own little puff sonas and changing their social media icons to them for a while there in anticipation for the new show. And then it came out. I also remember when I used to use these same 3 backgrounds for like every single review I made, which got old fast. That's why if you go back to certain videos like the Squashioning or Snow Month for example, you'll actually notice I switched things up a bit for those particular reviews. I got really sick of seeing the same exact backgrounds over and over again, and eventually when season 2 rolled around, I decided to try a different method altogether and started using settings that existed within the episodes themselves. I honestly think I got really lucky too, considering that I was actually able to pull a screen cap from practically every single episode of the dang show where no characters were on screen, or if there were, I'd easily be able to edit around them. I tell you what, that really spiced things up and making each review feel more unique and varied, so I'm definitely proud of myself for going the extra mile on that one. Of course, there were more changes to be had besides just the avatars and backgrounds, but if I went through every single minute detail, we'd be here all day. I've gotten a lot of questions regarding my thoughts on certain aspects of the series now that I've experienced it all, and while I can't answer every single one, I figure it's the best time to go through a few of them right now. The first is kind of already easy to predict, but these are what I consider to be the top 5 best episodes of the entire series. If I were to recommend any good episodes of this show to somebody, they would be the following: Splitsville, The Octfather, Home Sweet Homesick, The Trouble with Bubbles, and Blunder Cup. As for the worst, Snow Month, The Last Donicorn, You're a Good Man Mojo Jojo, Quarantine, and Once Upon a Townsville in those respective orders. Of course, Painbow, Largo, Buttercup vs. Math, and Sideline Dad all come relatively close. Another question I get is favorite villains. Honestly, if I were to rank all of the recurring villains, I would classify them as follows from best to worst: Silico, him, the Gnat, Jemica, the Fashionistas, Mojo, Manboy, Allegro, Princess, Polly, and Packrat, because honestly I just find Packrat to be a completely unmemorable character. Silico was the only villain to really have an arc, and despite it being sort of a roller coaster, overall I can at least say it was something and kept me interested for the next time he would make an appearance. The Fashionistas started strong in season 1, but it was quickly apparent that the show ran out of ideas for them when their only appearance in all of season 2 was so that Barbarous could date Mojo. Him's episodes weren't half bad, so I don't have too much to say there. He was just watered down compared to his original self, just like everybody else. Mojo was a miss more than hit character, but at least I can say he got better in season 3. Jemica was always competent, and I respect that. I genuinely enjoy how the show neglects the Gnat, and the show integrated that very well. Manboy was lame, Allegro was too whiny, Princess was a brat, Polly was uninteresting. I really don't have much to say about those characters. Honestly, it's a shame because the Powerpuff Girls villains in the original series were probably the best thing about it, and for the villains to kind of overall suck in the reboot is just a shame. And of course, because I get asked this time and time and time again, I will tell you which of the 3 girls is my favorite and least favorite. So of the 3 Powerpuff Girls, I can solemnly say that Bubbles is my favorite overall, and Buttercup is my least, with Blossom comfortably sitting right there in the middle. But truth be told, they all suck as characters. Bubbles just happens to suck the least. But with that, I'm afraid our time is up. At this point in the video, I have officially finished covering everything that I wanted to cover in regards to this shit show. After years of producing reviews for you guys, the time is up. The end is here. Unfortunately, as is true with all things in life, all good things must come to an end. Life will go on, and so will we. And wow, I'm making this sound way more depressing than it needs to be. Nah, in all reality, I'm not going to be going anywhere. Just because this video marks the end of the Reboot reviews and an era of my channel, it doesn't mark the end for Shadow Streak. I still have plenty of other videos I want to make, and I don't anticipate myself quitting anytime soon. I love making videos and plan to continue doing so long into the future. I don't really view this as an ending, but more so as the start of a new chapter. I think somebody else has probably said that before, but I have no idea who I'm quoting if that's the case. It's probably a super cliche thing anyways, but what are cliches if not true? Most of the time. Regardless, I am proud of my achievements during these last 5 years and would gladly do it all over again if I were given the chance. It's been one hell of a ride, and I am forever grateful for all of the experiences and memories that I've made along the way. Becoming a better creator, making new friends, and just getting to interact with other people who share the same passion for Powerpuff Girls as me has been an invigorating experience. I'm somebody who wants to make the most of my life, and I can definitely say that doing this for you guys has been something I will be able to live with in satisfaction for the rest of my life. This is something I know I can look back on and say, yeah, I did that. I loved having the conversations regarding the reboot, and I will definitely miss that going into the future. But as I said, I'm not going anywhere. There are plenty of other things that I want to work towards in the future. As a show, yeah, the reboot is terrible, but at the end of the day, I wouldn't be where I am if not for this show. Just think of how differently all of our lives would be right now had this show not come out the way it did. I might not have ever made this channel, I might not have ever even become a YouTuber at all. Whatever those alternate timelines might have been like, it doesn't matter to me. I'm grateful for this experience and will continue to look back on it for the duration of my lifetime. As much as I'd like to imagine it, I genuinely don't believe YouTube will be around forever, and sooner or later, as with all things, I'm sure my reviews will disappear into the void never to be seen again after I'm gone. But as of this moment, right now, while we're all here, I can definitely say that I am proud of my channel and the impact that it has had on me and the impact it has had on all of you. I live to entertain, and it's thrilling to hear that I've entertained all of you. I hope I can continue doing so with all of my future projects. And if there is anything that I want you all to take away from this video, it's this. You can achieve anything if you put your mind to it. It may be cliche as hell to say, and even more cliche to acknowledge that it's cliche, but it's true. If you stick to your guns and dedicate yourself to reaching your goals, you can do it. Make a plan. Take that first step. Carry the momentum and see where it takes you. So in summary, thank you. Thank you for the support you've given me and for enabling me to continue one of my favorite passions in life. I wouldn't be where I am right now if it weren't for you. So again, thank you. With that said, for one final time in a Powerpuff Reboot video, Shadow Streak, signing off.